Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to my guide for Skadi. Skadi is an ability-based hunter in SMITE seen only in the ADC role. Skadi focuses on doing a lot of damage, like so much damage, to the point that it feels horribly unbalanced to fight her on a one-on-one. To balance this, Skadi has no movement abilities to speak of, and her damage is completely focused on dealing damage to one enemy at a time. Not much area damage to speak of here either. So she is a big risk, but the rewards are enormous if you can get her going. Build-wise, yeah, ability-based hunter. If you've seen any of my guides based on ability-based hunters, you've seen something similar. You can spice it up a bit with a bit of attack speed here, or a crit item there, but for the most part her builds are very by the numbers. Same deal with relics, it's just beads and Aegis for Skadi, although she's definitely a god where Phantom Shell is in consideration instead of Aegis when against gods like Ymir, Kabrakan, or Odin. Shard-wise, Wing Shard, Claw Shard, and Horn Shard are all good on her, but I'd say the good old Wing Shard is the best one overall. Then finally for your recipe, it's actually a bit of a toss-up. Bountiful Bough works really well on her, but then Golden Gooseberries is sweet to have too, but not really necessary since Skadi has great wave clear. I'd say on the whole Bountiful Bough is the way to go, but it has an unfortunate interaction that you'll need to be aware of, which I'll get into in a moment. Let's get into why Skadi is so absurd in a 1v1 by explaining her passive. A 1v1 with Skadi is not actually a 1v1, because she has her trusty good boy Calder on her side. Calder Starson is in active form, and in this form he is completely untargetable and will follow Skadi around. We'll be skipping ahead to Skadi's second ability, as that's the ability that allows you to control Calder. Skadi can use this ability without leveling it, and it requires a valid target to activate the ability. Skadi can target any enemy entity in the game, from things like minions to gods to fire giants, and just as importantly, can attack things like towers and phoenixes with Calder as well, so never forget to put Calder onto structures while sieging for some insanely good tower damage. Upon activation, Calder will enter his active form and will begin attacking the targeted enemy. If the target dies, Calder will automatically switch to the nearest target. However, you can switch to a new target at any time by reactivating the ability. And you can cancel the ability at any time by pressing the ability button again with no targets in the targeter. So on that note, you have to be careful when switching targets. Not only because you can easily target things like minions by accident, but if you have this ability on instant casting, if your targeter is just a little bit off of your target when you try to target someone, you can end up canceling the ability by accident, wasting Calder's precious time. Calder's power, movement speed, and attack speed is all based off of Skadi's stats, as well as the rank of the ability. Upon ranking this ability once, Calder gains access to a dash attack, which is very important in helping Calder actually get to his targets before losing all of his HP. At rank 3, if Calder successfully kills any entity including minions, he'll be healed to full. Then once the ability reaches maximum level, when Calder successfully attacks an enemy, Skadi will be granted movement speed. So as you can tell, Skadi and Calder work directly together to kill targets. Skadi sets up for Calder with her other abilities, then Calder deals damage and grants Skadi movement speed to make sure she stays in range to get the kills done. Don't forget too about sinking Calder onto an unsuspecting minion or two after a fight to let himself heal up, as well as just in general remembering to use him on little things like buff camps too. You want to try and incorporate him literally whenever you try and do damage. This is however where that unfortunate Bountiful Bough interaction comes into play. You see, this ability technically has a cooldown, even if it's only 0.5 seconds. So, even though Skadi would like to use Bountiful Bough, it's hard to make the most out of it because you're constantly activating your second ability to put Calder onto targets, thus wasting your Bountiful Bough activation. It's really unfortunate, I wish there was some sort of way around it, but there really isn't. This doesn't kill the recipe's usefulness on Skadi, but it is needlessly annoying to play around, so just be aware of it. Anyways, back to Calder. When Calder is reduced to 0 HP, Skadi will gain 10% power, but obviously loses access to Calder. Calder has 5 points of health, and he loses health for every enemy basic attack that hits him, reduced to 5 instances of damage for every HP lost against lane minions. So he can die while taking damage from minions, but he does so much more slowly. Damage from gods is the main concern here. Still though, clearing out minions is something you should look to do before sending Calder in, and that's where Skadi's first ability comes into play. Skadi fires forward a projectile which passes through all enemies and walls, a rarity for such a hard-hitting projectile. The projectile will do damage and slow enemies it hits, and Calder will deal double damage to enemies affected by this ability's slow, which lasts for 3 seconds. So this is the classic it's go time sort of ability for Skadi, and it's how you start pretty much every fight. And obviously, it's how you clear waves too, but the fact that it goes through literally everything gives you plenty of versatility. You use it on the wave, use it only on some of the wave and angle it so it hits your lane opponent, sometimes you stick Calder on them after this and try to get a few basic attacks in, and sometimes you just let them think you will do that to pressure them off the wave. Of course, how much you can bully your opponents on Skadi depends on A, who you're laning against, and B, how easy it is for the enemy support and or jungler to gank you if you try to be aggressive. And yeah, while Skadi actually can bully a large majority of ADCs, she's also extremely easy to gank. Like, I really can't think of any god in either of those roles, other than maybe Nemesis, who struggled to play through Skadi's only form of hard CC and peel in her core kit, her third ability. Skadi lays down a circular AoE on the ground, which will grow in size as you level it. Regardless of size, it always has the same effect. Enemies who enter the circle will be affected by a unique slippery surface form or hard CC, which will cause them to lose control of their movement and camera control, and cause them to slowly move in the direction they entered the area in, which, yes, looks hilarious, and causes enemies to bounce around in the area when in a confined space. But if any enemy was not moving when they entered the area, they will be flung into a random direction. The ability will also deal burst damage when it's first cast, aiding Skadi's wave clear, and will also deal damage over time to all enemies inside the AoE, making her buff clear exceptional. Not so fast though, or I guess be fast, because Skadi gains movement speed when she herself enters the area, and you definitely want to utilize the fact that Skadi gets movement speed while in the AoE and gets the duration reset if she leaves it, and then re-enters it. So this is why Bountiful Bow, even though it has that annoying interaction with her second ability, is so good on Skadi, because it means you have consistent access to this ability which is insanely good that works for both aggression and defense. This ability really is epic, but is hamstrung by the fact that it's Skadi's only, and I mean only, way to reliably speed herself up in any way, shape, or form. So even though it's one of the most interesting abilities in the game to use aggressively, you have to be very cautious about when you do it, because you're just one wrong usage of this ability away from having no chance to escape a potential gank or engage by the enemy team. Still though, all you gotta do is just look in the general vicinity of your lane opponent to hit them with this ability. So that's a huge plus, and of course, since you can literally see which direction they'll be sliding in once they get hit with the ability, it guarantees you're able to hit your first ability as they're sliding. At least I hope you get it. And generally speaking, that's the idea with this ability. Lay it down and watch the enemy team panic as they try to get their bearings straight. Skadi has a lot of damage on her side, but this ability's potential to CC almost the entire enemy team all at once is Skadi's hidden best aspect. And in those one-on-one confrontations, it's even better since you can 3, 1, 2, then walk up while basic attacking to get your movement speed bonus, and trust me, so long as you hit your basic attacks, you will win any 1v1 trade. About that movement speed though, yes, it's more than enough to catch back up to enemies and want them to continue comboing after they use a movement ability. But it's hardly going to save you against 99% of Guardians and Assassins ganking you like I mentioned earlier. Luckily there is that built-in factoid that, if you 3 yourself, whoever's chasing you will likely have to get CC'd by the 3 to catch you. But unfortunately, a lot of gods can afford to just CC you once, then force out your 3, then use a movement ability like a leap or a teleport to go right over your third ability, because remember, it's quite small when the ability is rank 1. This is unfortunate and really requires you to not only have access to purification beads every time you get ganked if you want to live, but that you also have to time it perfectly so that you can avoid their advances at the right time and safely get your 3's movement speed and make the most out of it. That said though, you can play around her third ability and genuinely win some 2v1s, especially if you're able to grab the protections buff. This ice is easily Skadi's best asset against melee matchups. Go into it and then out of it, cross in and out and force them to try and play around it, resetting that movement speed duration over and over again, all while you and Calder shred right through them. Again though, this is best case scenario, i.e. you successfully timed your purification beads to cleanse both your lane opponent and your ganker's best CC abilities, but if you feel like you're doomed anyways, or if the enemy team got way overzealous trying to gank you at your tower line, sometimes it's best just to turn the fight on them, using your third ability to bait them into bad situations. The number one ability to help you seal this and any other kill though is Skadi's ultimate. This ability functions like Skadi's second ability, but can be cast without having a target for Calder to pounce on, and can be activated while Calder already has an active target. This time though, when Calder is called into a target, he will launch himself onto them, dealing burst damage and rooting them, and regenerating himself to full health. And yes, you can use this ability even while Calder is in his inactive form with 0 HP. Calder will always fully heal himself and pounce on the target. Both Skadi and Calder will also emit a blizzard around themselves. This blizzard deals damage over time, and if you're able to get nice and close to your target, Skadi and Calder's blizzards will stack damage on top of one another. Then, Calder can be controlled through the regular means with Skadi's second ability. Skadi's ultimate is only ever used for that initial activation where she causes the blizzards and casts Calder onto an enemy. After that, it's back to using the 2. But even if you have no enemies for Calder to jump to, as I mentioned, you can still cast the ability, and Skadi will root all enemies around herself. This is obviously perfect as a final line of defense for self-peel while being chased, since you can just cast the ability on nothing to root enemies who are right on top of you. That's not the intention with this ability, as I'm sure you can guess though, and it's an incredible ability when used aggressively to finish off kills. It fits into our current combos perfectly, against targets who have no movement ability, 3, 1, 2, then ultimate before Calder reaches 0 HP. Then against targets who have a movement ability, 3, 1, 2, then fight until you force out their movement ability. Then use your 3 for some movement speed to get in range for this ultimate, then ultimate, and basic attacks with Calder. You might think, wow, that sounds super strong on a 1v1, how are you supposed to beat that? Well, there are answers like Houyi, Danzaburo, and Ram, who are able to just kinda wait this out with their own ultimates, or Jingwei, who just runs away. Most characters can't answer this at all and just die. And that's why Skadi is very easy to kill, to balance out the sheer insanity that is her damage in a 1v1. I've mostly been talking about this theoretical 1v1 in the laning phase section of Skadi. How does this fit into late game in the team fights? Well, luckily, if you get into team fights as Skadi, she becomes a bit of a monster, so long as your team isn't behind. Skadi is a very reactive character, so don't go in there expecting to start a fight yourself. You usually want to play off the main engage of the fight, whether that's performed by your tanks or the enemy tanks. Once the fight starts, you want to try and look for a good opportunity to A. place down your ice to slow down enemy advancements, and B. place the null on an important target like a mage or a hunter. Don't forget about the fact that you literally can't miss it so long as you're in range, so it's a perfect way to stop combos dead in their tracks. Other than that though, Skadi is a bit of a passenger in fights. Keep yourself at a safe distance, throw your ice on whoever you can whenever you can, and you're kind of maximizing your fight potential as Skadi. It's one of the reasons she's pretty much never been considered good. But it's not like she's useless in the late game. Keep in mind her siege against towers and damage on objectives is exceptional, but you'll need an exceptional ult on an important target without killing yourself to get in range to do it to be effective, and it's no small feat. Speaking of which, some combos with Skadi. 1, 2 basic attacks. 3, 1, 2 basic attacks. When they have no movement ability, ult 1, 3. When they have their movement ability, 3 ult basic attacks, then chase with the 3's movement speed and 1. For ability leveling, you earn 1 at level 1, your 3 at level 2, and your 2 at level 3. From there you want your ult to level 5, but skip leveling it until your 1 and 3 and 2 are maxed. Then prioritize your 3, your 1, then your 2. If you want more reliable wave clear and better chase down, you can max your first ability, but it really is best just to maximize your third ability size and the movement speed to at least give yourself a chance to survive ganks. And that's Skadi in a nutshell, ranking up an ability she doesn't really want to rank up just so she can live. Let me get it out of the way now. I like Skadi. She's a really cool god, no pun intended. But remember when I said Oleron was in the running for one of the most risky gods in the game? Well, here's the second most risky god in the game right here, and don't worry, you'll see number 1 in the next guide. Skadi just dies. Like, a lot. And what does she bring in return for the risk? Well, she's really good in 1v1s. In a game where it's 5v5 and it's team-based, yeah, it doesn't really bounce out. And that's why the god, even though she's been in the game for 7 years, has never been considered meta. She certainly caught people off guard when she was first released, but since then she's been played around with a bit, sure, but she just doesn't really have a good place in the grand scheme of SMITE. Want a good 1v1er? Hou Yi, AMC, Artemis, Danzaburo, they're all right there, and they can all do a lot more in a teamfight than Skadi can. Then a split pusher, Sol, Apollo, Izanami, all much more safe than Skadi, and again, better teamfight potential. Skadi's just left in this really weird state because she has to be balanced around the fact that she has unbelievably high damage in a one-on-one thanks to Kaldir, so she kinda has to be not so good. So by now I'm sure you've realized that Skadi's not this all-rounder god who can serve you well in the ADC role. She's a god who falls squarely into her own role. Great pressure early on with a great 1v1 in the mid-game and insanely good tower push basically throughout the game. She's a god who has strengths, they're just not really as valuable as what other gods bring to the table, even gods who are good in bland ways like Ram or Hachiman. If you're looking for something new in the ADC role, Skadi's your go-to. No god plays anything like her. Hera sort of does with Argus by her side, but Skadi and Kaldir really are 2 gods in 1, a status no other god can really lay claim to. And plus, since people don't really play Skadi, you're sure to catch plenty of enemy duo lanes off guard with how absurd your damage is, and it can be pretty easy to snowball with Skadi. Just, if you do end up playing Skadi, buy wards, like a million of them. That's all I have on Skadi for now. Thanks for watching. Shard-wise, Wing Shard, Claw Shard, and Heart... Shard... What was that? That was thunder.